and it makes it more useful and user friendly, and if you use that method, then you're more likely to use the Gantt chart as it's supposed to be used. You can see whether you're ahead of your schedule or you're behind your schedule. Okay, so then you need to propose a block diagram. So once you've decided on what it is you want to do, every project, regardless what it is, has a block diagram. We, as engineers, we love block diagrams. Okay? It can give us the structure of the entire dissertation. Because if your block diagram contains, I don't know, DSP and, I don't know, say LTE, whatever, then you're going to need those headings in your literature review. You're going to need those later on in your implementation. So if you've got a good block diagram, then that, like I say, that provides the structure of the rest. Then the domain. So what domain? Obviously telecommunications is going to come in there somewhere. Maybe control, maybe image processing, maybe digital signal processing. So that's what domain we're after. What resources are you going to require? So is it going to be hardware? Is it going to be software? Is it going to be both? Some students buy their own equipment if they're doing a hardware project. The university has some hardware, such as PIC microcontrollers. We've just taken delivery of some, well, we've got some radar equipment. The guys have arrived this afternoon and are commissioning it, so it's being set up at the moment. So a project student could potentially be working on that this semester. So, that would be an ideal project if you're interested in that at all. If you are interested in that, is anybody interested in that? You're not? Because I was going to say, well, if you are interested in that, he's going to do a demonstration at 4 o'clock today. So you could go down into S18 and go and attend the demonstration. I don't know, what time is it now?
3.
Is it? Oh, I can't talk. Well, I've booked this room for 2 hours. Is it at the university? Is it purchased? Bearing in mind if you're going to use software, will you have a personal copy or will you have to come into the university to use it? As you know, MATLab's everywhere. We've got certain toolboxes. It's over in the library. OpNet's in the library and it does work. If you're doing a hardware project, you're limited. You've got to come into the lab, so you're stuck to certain times. I mean, hopefully it's easier for you guys now because we're in Stoke. Yeah. But the day is 9 to 5. I think it's 9 to 5. I'm sure it's 9 to 5. I'm sure Paul and Dave leave at 9 to 5. But also, if one of the technicians is off, that particular lab won't be available that day. We are discussing about places for MSc students to work so they can have a particular space in a lab or a room or whatever. But that is hopefully being resolved soon, but it hasn't been resolved as yet. I mean, I don't know if you know, but before when we were in Stafford, Dr. Patuari used to have all the project students sort of sat in the room next to him, his office, whereas the students now will use one of the labs here or upstairs. And then sometimes in the meetings we'll just have the meeting in our offices or we'll come to you, dependent. I mean, if it is a demo that we need to see in a lab or somewhere else, then we'll obviously have to go to the demo. Deliverables are what you are delivering, the outcomes of the project. So obviously there's going to be a dissertation, there's going to be a presentation, and there's going to be whatever you've implemented, whether that be hardware or software, etc. We've talked about the ethics. Probably most of you will all be fast track. If it's not, then we'll talk about that on an individual basis because generally it's fast track. Health and safety. Now, this is usually an issue if you are working in hardware and, I don't know, you might be soldering, you might be using something in a lab that's heavy. but the technicians are there, and certain equipment has health and safety issues, like, I don't know, the electrical equipment are operating at high voltages, so you have to have training and whatever that is. But we don't really have too many health and safety issues for us. However, maybe if you were using the radio equipment, it might be different. So, but we do. I think I can't remember. I think there's a health and safety form. I'll just, because I obviously put this together today and yesterday, I'll have a look, but it doesn't seem to be in my project students folders from this time. So I'll just check what they did on health and safety. I know it's in, because there's two systems running at the same time. There's one system for undergrads and one for postgrads, because you know that you all have to, I don't know if you have done yet, have you created your projector profile thing? You haven't. Well, that's one thing that you do need to do. And then when we're ready to allocate, then we can go in and choose you. But the undergrads, they have to actually do their project proposal within Projector. So once you've created your title, then it gives you a number of headings, which most of them are the same as these headings. I've just sort of tailored it a bit because I don't think all of the headings are, or I've added a few. I can't remember. I've just changed it because it's more suitable for MSc. Because, like I say, the undergraduates actually submit it by copying and pasting the text in the boxes in Projector, but we don't. But we're not even doing that next year. We're doing it back through Blackboard, which is the way that you'll do it. So Ian Taylor will give you the date. I don't know when it is at the moment for your project proposal. I mean, I don't know it personally off the top of my head. And then you'll do your project proposal. So the idea is to get working on this as soon as possible. It's usually a good while, but to start...
You said in 6 weeks.
6 weeks, yeah. So these are the things that needs to go in it. You've probably already been to this site, have you? Yeah, it was just in case you hadn't. I've missed the conclusion. Obviously you need a conclusion, so what you're going to do in there, in your project. So, and also the Gantt chart. I haven't said this in this project, but the Gantt chart, showed you a Gantt chart, will be in an appendix. Because one thing to know about projects, at the moment, you're probably going to laugh at me. You've got a word count, yeah? Right, if you go way over that word count, which a lot of students do, and like I say, you're going to laugh at me at the moment, you think, I'm never going to be able to write that many words. Well, an easy thing to do is to put things that are not real, not saying that they're not relevant, but they don't need to be in the main report, into the appendices. Okay, so because a lot of it is, some of the literature review is like repeating stuff from somewhere else. So sometimes you can say, for more information, see appendix, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so the Gantt chart is one of them things that go in the appendix. Well, actually, the ethics form will go in an appendix as well. And if there is a form for health and safety, I think sometimes you're required to do. If there's ethics always needs to be done, and health and safety form only needs to be done if there's a health and safety risk assessment done. So you would definitely have those, and you may not have the health and safety.
So this compulsory we have Gantt charts in our appendix.
Yeah. Well, otherwise you've missed out on the project planning part of your of your proposal. Okay, so brainstorm. Now, we can either do this now, or you can go away and do this on your own. You choose your subject area. I'm sure you all know what a brainstorm is, don't you? Don't need to tell you what one is. And then you can bring out what the stuff, essentially, by writing it down on a piece of paper like this. I'm a very big fan of doing it, because I work on a how can I say? I like pictures. I don't like lots of words. Okay, so for me, if I get a subject area and then I think it's because it's freer. You think, oh well, I'll need it. If I want to do a project in that subject area, I'll need to think about this, and I'll need to think about this, and I'll need to think about this, and I'll put them all round, and then I'll think about how they're interlinked afterwards. Whereas if you write them down in the list, you think that they're in some sort of an order, and that one's more important than that one, and it's just easier to do it when you brainstorm, I think. Okay, so for the next time that we meet, which will possibly be next Friday. I'm only saying possibly because I'm moving house soon and I don't know the actual date. I'm actually signing the contract next Tuesday, and so it's very, very close, but I don't know the actual date. So for the next time that we meet, I would like to see some of your brainstorms. Obviously, a project title with some aims and objectives, some research papers listed, maybe not lots and lots of pages and pages and pages of words. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you have to do. I'm not expecting to see an outline proposal or a draft proposal for the next time that we meet. If you do one, then that's good, but I'm not saying that that's what you have to do, because you've got 6 weeks to do it. So let's just write this. This is recorded, and I will upload this. So 1, brainstorm. Whoops. See, I don't know how to use this yet. So 1, brainstorm. Actually, I think I can do this. 1, I brainstorm. 2, title. 3, aim and objectives. And one more thing, an attempt at a block diagram. So I don't know if I can make this bigger. I don't. No, it's not that clever. Okay, well, it's recorded it all, so I can edit it later. So this is an example of a block diagram. Obviously, yours will all be different. You'll see that, well, I've edited something that I already produced for something else, because obviously I'm not going to draw something just specifically for this. It's a real document that is actually part of my PhD thesis. The reason that it says figure 0.1 is because everything is automatically numbered. So that 0 represents the chapter number that we're currently in. And because this is an excerpt of my thesis and it's taken out, we're in chapter 0 essentially. So obviously all your figures need to be labelled. And the figure 01 shows it, so we need to introduce the figure. So figure 0.1 shows an overview of components within the model network. The reason that we don't say, the common mistake is the figure below shows this. Now, sometimes that figure below might actually be on another page, or you might move it. So you might add another figure there, or you might delete it, or whatever. So it might not actually be there, but the text still refers to it. So if we have it like that, then when we print it, then it will be updated. So if you've moved it, then it will automatically change the numbering. I've clearly labelled what each thing is. This isn't just a block diagram. It's actually got images and a network there as well. And you'll probably recognise that some of those images are actually taken out of HopNet. So we've got a wireless device or a mobile phone, and that was when I wrote that in 2003. That was a state-of-the-art phone. It wasn't one that I had one similar to that after that. Yeah, the Nokia. And obviously you can recognise I've got uplink and downlink, and I've colour-coded things because that's how I am. And we've got a picture of a base station, a gateway device, and I'm using the network topology there. But like I say, this is specific to my project. So you would perhaps just use blocks. Okay, so what I'm after is this block diagram. A clear view of what it is you want to do. I'm not after how you're going to do it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not that's a lot what a lot of students get scared at. They don't put pen to paper, or they don't. Oh, do you know that you can download Visio and things like that from the university?
Yeah, we can.
You do?
use the Office, yeah.
Yeah. Did you know that? Or have you got Office and things?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because you're a student at the university, you can download the latest versions of Office, and obviously certain Microsoft products. So you could download Microsoft Project, but you can definitely download. I would personally, for your project, download Visio. It's much easier to use than Word, or even some people write your pictures actually in PowerPoint. What I always do is I draw the picture in Visio, right? But because my thesis was so large, you may want to do this or you may not. I always I keep the Visio file, I highlight it, and then I copy it, and then I go into Word and I paste it as a picture, so it's small, so the overall Word document doesn't become huge. But that depends on how many images you're going to put in your project itself. But that's just a tip, because at the time when I wrote this, Word was a completely different Word than it is now. Or also, I'm not bothered whether you use Word or LaTeX. At the end of the day, it's the content. LaTeX, then the project supervision will be slightly different, because I'd have to write down more, because I couldn't edit in the meeting. It would be more of an offline and me just writing stuff. Because I still, for the life of me, can't get LaTeX to work on my computer. Even Dr. Patuari's installed it for me and he can't get it working, and we're just like, well, it's too much of a waste of time. The PhD students can use the LaTeX to produce the papers. I'm just worried about the content. Okay, so this is more specific to my project itself. It depends on your project. I know some of the students, maybe not you, but some of the other students want to do an OpNet project. But this is if you've got any communication that's happening in your project. So I still can't remember your titles because we've not said what they are today. But if there's multiple components, which I guess there is, isn't there? There will be multiple. They've got to talk to each other. They've got to communicate with each other. This is a telecommunications project. So this is what we call. Have you seen a timing diagram before? Yeah. So essentially, it's saying here we've got 4 different entities: the mobile station, the base station, the gateway, and the device at the other side. In this case, it's fixed. It may not be fixed. So it's 4 devices. This thing here, do you know what that means?
No.
It means that there's a break in the link, but there could be lots of other things in the network in between. So it's connected, but it's not directly connected. So what this is showing is this base station is emitting packets. They're called beacon packets. And what I've done, the reason I'm going into such detail here is because I want to give you an example of how to draw your diagrams, because when you draw a diagram, you need to describe it within the text to make it make any sense. And then when you draw, I used pseudocode, but you might choose to do flowcharts, dependent on your project. Personally, I find pseudocode much easier to follow, because flowcharts can go on for pages and pages and pages and pages, and I don't think they give as much detail. But here I've got, from the previous slide, I said that downlink was red and uplink was blue, so I followed that.
Downlink was blue.
Sure, we could have a look. Oh, I've done it. I coloured it the wrong way.
Yeah.
It's better if you change the color on the other slide. It's only one.
Yeah. Okay. Nobody noticed that. Got away with it. Okay. Well, it's colour coded anyway, shall we say? Okay. So, and what I've done is I've referred to each action as a letter, and whether it's uplink or downlink, because obviously when you've got two-way communication, you've got uplink and downlink commands. So this is what happens: is how I'm going to get a code in this is a CDMA system when everything goes well. So I'm going to receive beacons from various base stations. Then when I receive a packet that needs to be transmitted, I'm going to request a packet, a code. So yes, in D, the code is granted. So as soon as I say D, you know where I'm talking about on this diagram. So in the text, as soon as I mention the code is granted and put D uplink, you know exactly where I am. Then all the IP packets can be forwarded to the base station, E uplink, and then that base station can then forward those packets to the remote device. Up until a time when there are no more packets arriving. So then you can say, okay, I don't have any more packets. I don't need that code anymore. So then the base station can say, we don't need, yeah, okay, that code's been released. Okay. So then what we've got here at the bottom right, I'm not going to go through the whole diagram, but it's the same sort of thing. But rather than getting your code allocated, it's saying what happens if you don't get your code allocated. So there's a timeout request, so I'll ask for another one, and then I'll ask for another one, and then you say, actually, no, you've been declined. But what I've got in the text above, which is here, is this is essentially that is the bottom part of this diagram, and I've labelled the figure, and it's got A's and B's. This is part B. The one on the previous slide was part A. So in my text, which you will see there, I've said the sequence of events for the uplink wireless MAC protocol are now explained, and the events are denoted as star uplink with reference to the figure. So now in my text, this is only 4 lines of it, I'm going and explaining what I've just said verbally in the document, because you have to remember that at the end of the day, your dissertation is something that somebody reads, and it needs to tell the whole story, because you can't always be with it to explain things. So this was my solution. I'm not saying that this is the only solution, and I quite like the solution, but that's how I tackled it. I do carry that on into my pseudocode, but that's a bit too much information for today. I don't want to confuse you with pseudocode. I'll do another presentation later. We'll either all sit around and talk about it, or I'll just record one of these and put it in, because this will now be an MP4 document with these slides and my scribblings on. Right, so what you've got to remember is 24 weeks is not long at all. Plan your time using a Gantt chart, always write in the third person, and refer to the figures in the text. Essentially all the things that I keep going on about over and over again. Yes, this is a big one. When you're doing, especially when you're doing your literature review, but even in your proposal, please, 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 please do not write the thing and say the references are at the end. Because we need to know, as a reader, which bit, where that information has come from. That sounds obvious, but the other thing is if you just write the whole thing and don't cite the references. I've had a student come to me today, well, I'm going to do it later. Well, you're doing you're doing the job twice, because you've had to write it, and then you think, right, I'm going to put all the references in the one go. You've written the whole thing, you've forgotten which reference that came from and where was it published, and it just takes so much longer. Just do it the first time. If that's all you can, please do that. Again, use words, heading styles if you're going to use Word, because then your numbering and captions are all ready done, and also your reference to figures. So obviously if you add another figure or if you delete a figure, then the numbering will be all taken care of. And also your table of contents are automatically generated at the end. In that common folder, there is a template dissertation document with all the numbering all set up. I won't open it now, but the one thing I will say is I haven't gone through and changed the margins. I haven't checked for an MSc dissertation or an undergrad project dissertation, because I remember when I was writing mine is because they're bound and they could be quite thick, the left-hand margin needs to be larger than the default, because if you can imagine a book, a thick book has a big margin because of them all being bound, so many pages being bound together. So that's the same in your actual report, because they can be quite long. In conclusion, I'd like to wish you good luck with your project and ask you if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me.